Hobby computers and retro gaming have gone hand in hand for decades, and ever since the advent of the Raspberry Pi, the two have been more accessible than ever. There are many ways to play retro games on the go in 2020, but if you want the most bang for your buck, you'll be building it yourself. ODROID is one of the most popular manufacturers of DIY gaming hardware, and their ODROID-GO Advance Black Edition is their greatest one yet. There have been several versions of the ODROID-GO Advanced, so it can be hard to spot the differences between the models. The Black Edition adds USB-C support in L2 and R2, fully enabling support for PS1 games that use those buttons. Other than that, everything else is basically the same. The face buttons and the D-pad are all the same plastic material that seem well built, but they do rattle in place, and the D-pad's corners are rather sharp. The new L2 and R2 buttons are only half-sized, but overall well positioned enough that they're easy enough to find while gaming. If you game while using the included full-size USB port, R2 can get a little less comfortable to press. The joystick doesn't have very large range of motion, so it does feel rather imprecise, and has sharp edges around the sides, but thankfully doesn't spin. Adding a silicone cover should help fix that. There is a row of buttons below the screen that are used to get to the menus and start and select, but these are strictly silicone buttons, so they are rather mushy and can stick. Thankfully, you won't really need to press these buttons while gaming. The screen is 480 by 320, which is slightly suboptimal for retro gaming at native resolutions, but the screen's bright and has good viewing angles. The speaker is only mono, but sounds pretty decent. The battery life is much better than average at 6 to 10 hours with USB-C fast charging supported. The casing is either black or clear and overall is a good texture, but this being a kit, there are some hard and sharp edges to it, and overall it isn't very ergonomic. The casing really is the main place where the DIY roots of this handheld can be felt. From the extra connectors for hobbyists to the case openings destined for purposes end users would never need, it feels more like a prototype than a finished handheld. Performance is what really makes the ODROID-GO Advance stand out. There aren't many handheld options that provide this level of performance, especially in this price range. 32-bit and under are no problem, but it does play more. If it's considered retro, the ODROID can probably play it. N64, Dreamcast, PSP, Saturn, etc. are all playable. Now, not every game will hit the silky smooth 60 FPS, but enough that there are plenty to play for each system, and with more being added as emulators get more developed and optimized. For some systems like the N64, you will run into the fact that there's not enough buttons to play these games, or the buttons are in unoptimized locations, but that'll be dependent on what games you play. No SD card comes with the ODROID, so you will need to supply your own, which does add roughly $10+ if you want to get at least 32 gigabytes of storage. But all the emulators come installed in the default system image, so all you'll need to do is add games. You will need third-party software to add the ROMs to your handheld, so either to read the SD card or to send files over Wi-Fi using WinSCP, but it's not too hard if you are comfortable using a computer. But that leads into the ODROID-GO Advance Black Edition's greatest weakness, besides the horribly long name: usability. It's a very well thought out device, but it's one that is built around keeping the price low. Whereas most devices have 2 SD card slots so the system can live separate from the ROMs, the ODROID makes do with one. This forces them to use ext4 for storage for data security, but then requires most users to use extra software to add games. The casing is also a DIY kit to save money, but also is missing common features like stereo speakers and dedicated brightness and volume controls. You want to change the volume or brightness, you'll have to do it from the main menu. And if you're a dedicated tinkerer, then things like this are all worth the trade-off for the great performance, but a strictly end user may be put off by the utilitarian design choices. Still, if you're looking to play the most amount of games for the lowest price, it's hard to find a better option than the ODROID-GO.